Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to our little corner of the world that we refer to as Dharma Time. As always, I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, and I'm, of course, accompanied with, where is he at here? There he is, the Dope Doctor, aka Dope and Dharma. He's dope, I'm Dharma. What's going on, everybody? And this is, of course, as I said earlier at the top of the show, this is Dharma Time. This is where we talk about some spirituality, right? This is where we talk about the philosophical things of life to help us get through it and find some inner peace. And boy, do we have some good stuff coming up over the next several weeks. For those of you who do not follow us on social media, shame on you. You should start today, right now, wherever you're at, however you're listening to it. Follow at the Dope Doctor and at the Dharma Guy, so you can see all the shenanigans we get through throughout the week. And I posted earlier today, we're going to do a 4-part series starting today, right now, about judgment. But before we get to that, how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic, actually. I feel pretty good today. Minus the sinuses.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah, I thought it was just me. Like, my sinuses have been acting up lately, and it's so freaking hot today, man. Like, it's already back into, like, the 80s, dude. Like, I had my 3 days. You know, it was great. Now I'm back to being miserable, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I told you it was going to be short-lived, but you knew that.
Yeah, I know. Boy can dream, though, right?
But, yeah, the pollen count must be really high, man. I mean, you know, look at this, the quality of our problems, right? We're able to complain
Yes.
about pollen count
Yes.
and sinuses.
Yes.
And some people are shoveling snow today.
Well, meanwhile, right now, I'm sure in some part of the country, somebody's house just got bombed by something and they're running for their lives.
Right.
And we're upset about pollen count because, you know what?
Right.
Pollen sucks. Just going to put that out there.
Can't do nothing for you, man.
Right?
Too busy trying to do for me.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I've been stuffy lately as well. So I'm glad it's not just me. I'm glad you're sharing in my misery.
Is it really? Is Kathy saying that it's the
worst year yet?
Yeah,
I don't know.
On Facebook Live, by the way, some people join us Facebook Live, and you can always join us on Facebook Live when we do these shows live on WPSN 99. Facebook.com/WPSN99. And what is she saying? Worst year yet? Is it really?
You know what? I'm gonna defer to her on that one because she kind of keeps up with that type of stuff. She's always got these like weird little factoids about pollen count and whatnot. So I'm going to assume that she's got it right. I don't know, but I just know it sucks.
Are you telling me that she's always right, Trinity?
I didn't say that. I don't think anybody's always right. As much as I would like to think that I'm always right, I'm pretty sure my wife will tell you I'm frequently wrong. So
I think Kathy's right a lot, Kathy. I appreciate it.
Sure. And she is adamant about telling us it's the worst yet because she's now commented 3 times. So she wants to make sure we know it. It's the worst. So anyways, I digress. So an interesting thing happened last night, right? Well, leading up to last night, numerous things have been taking place, both in our personal lives and our professional lives. You know, in the world as we know it, right? Things have been happening, and last night to me, something happened. I made a post, and some people had some comments about it or whatever. No need to get all the way into it all. It just, for me, it triggered this idea of mine that say, hey, you know what? That's a real issue, I think, right? Not just in my stupid little post, but just in general. And for full disclosure, I think this is probably, the second time, I think, that we've done this much planning for some shows where we really sat down and we talked today and we said, you know what, we got a 4-series program coming up. We had a lot of stuff that we want to talk about today. There's a lot of things that him and I have been aware of that we think that deserves attention. And instead of cramming it all into one show and not doing it justice, we figured we'd break it up into a 4-series, because the kids like that series. So hopefully you guys will keep coming back and watching the series and you'll see our entire,
Hey,
our entire thoughts on it.
Did you seriously just say that our 5-minute discussion is, wow, we did a lot of planning.
For us, that's planning, man. Yes, we're the consummate professionals is what we are. We take this seriously, dude. We sit there for months on end. We've already got next year's show this time planned, guys. Like, that's what we do. Sort of. Anyways, so let's just get into it, man. Let's start. So today's show, I think we titled it "What's Funny," right? What's funny? All right, so I don't know how to start this. All right, so funny, right? To me, funny is a very subjective term. What's funny for one person might not be funny for the next person, right?
Andrew Dice Clay, that's funny.
I would think I think Andrew Dice Clay is funny. But if you look back at some of the stories in his heyday, he pissed off a lot of people, you know. And today he has kind of changed a lot of his demeanor based upon the feedback that he's gotten. He's still the Dice Man. Don't get me wrong. He's
I was
still
gonna
who he
say, because
is.
we saw those
Yeah,
things.
yeah, on Cameo. But those are people going to him for that, because I've seen him do other movies and other appearances where he's toned it down considerably, right? Some of that might be
Still funny as
age.
hell. Dice, you
Yeah,
keep being
yeah,
Dice.
yeah. I agree. My and so I'm known in the Facebook world, I guess, apparently, for doing these birthday wishes every year. Where I'll pick a meme. I used to do it for different people, but then, when you start getting up into the thousands, I start to forget who I did what meme for, whatever. So now I just pick one, and that's my year. And then the next year I do the same. And I've had mixed reviews, right? Like at first I just did it on whim because I think humor is an important part of life, which I think we're going to get into today. And for the most part, people laughed at it, thought it was cute, thought it was funny. I shockingly get a lot of people who tell me yearly, like, dude, I was really looking forward to that. Every year I look forward to. I didn't realize it had that kind of an impact, right? However, I have had a few. I've had a couple that were really upset about some of the stuff that I put out there, really offended by it. Not many. I mean, out of the several hundred or thousand, whatever I do a year, it's like 2 or 3, maybe.
All right.
So it's not a high percentage, but it kind of, to me, is a symptom of a bigger thing, right? Like, we have this thing right now where comedy is, like, under siege, man. And it's like as a society, we've gotten so serious and so, like, offended that now it's like humor is just not allowed anymore, right? I remember growing up, humor was the last bastion that was like where you could be offended or you could be offending, right? Like that was it. You expected your comedians to kind of push the envelope a little bit, but it seems like in today's world they're not even allowed to do it. There's jokes that I hear. And out of fear of cancellation, I'm not even going to go into some of the specific ones because I don't want the backlash. And that's what we're going to continue to talk about today. That's part of what we're talking about with the humor, right? Because we're talking about judgment. That's our 4-part series. And the thing with judgment and humor, the way they kind of coincide is A, people get to judge what is funny, what isn't funny. They feel like they can judge what should or shouldn't be funny for other people as well. Mm-hmm. If I don't find it funny, then you shouldn't find it funny. And then the third thing that they do judgment a lot is, if you do find that funny, then there's something wrong with you, right? Mm-hmm. Like you could be this great person that like saves, children in burning orphanages your entire life, and you dedicate your whole life to everything. But if you laugh at this, none of that stuff matters. You're a horrible person because you laughed at that, and that to me is horrible, right? And so, like, I'm guilty of it. Dude, there's plenty of things out there that I laugh at. Even you and me. You and I will send stuff back and forth sometimes that we both laugh at that I would never post for fear of retribution. I'm just being honest. My wife and I have inside jokes where we talk about stuff that we would never utter outside of this house for fear of retribution. Because somehow we find humor in something that makes us horrible individuals or horrible people. And that to me, I think, is a problem right now. I think it's like we forgot to have fun, right? Like we forgot to laugh. How many times have you and I caught shit because of the stuff we do in the addiction world when we're dealing with life and death sometimes, but we try to throw a little bit of humor, not in the middle of somebody in a crisis, of course, but we try to, and people like attack us. Well, this is a serious subject. You shouldn't laugh at it and everything else. How many times do we get that, dude?
That's how I started my career. I mean, 21 years ago when the Couch Live started, and we first started talking about addiction and recovery on the air. One of the biggest things that some people had issue with and took issue with is how can you guys be laughing and joking around? This is a serious subject. It's nothing's funny about addiction. I said, well, there's a lot of shit funny about addiction, first of all, but there's a lot of shit painful about addiction as well. Yeah. So I think that the problem is if we take ourselves too serious, and I think this is what we're getting at today, right? Is if we take ourselves too serious and we start, marking off things that bring some levity to the situation, and then what? We're just going to be around serious and crying. Let me tell you, comedy has always pushed the limit, right? That's what makes it comedy. That's what makes it funny. When someone, because it's the only place you could really talk about politics. You could talk about race. You could talk about, what do you call stereotypes? I mean, religion. I mean, that's where you're able to do it. In that format, you really can't do it anywhere else. Can you imagine trying to do it any other way? The format in which you're able to do it is in a joke. Now, some people are serious with their humor, but that's also what kind of makes it funny that person actually thinks about it.
Yeah.
But here's the deal: you think about shit all the time. I do, Trinity, you do,
Of
and I
course.
think it. And sometimes I make myself laugh because I'm holding it in because
Yeah.
I thought about something, and I read the crowd or I read the situation. And I go, I can't say it here,
Yeah.
but you're thinking it. But it's why if I just give a look to you or you give me a look, we both know what we're thinking at the exact same time because our mind is very similar. So all you have to do is throw a look at somebody that knows you, and next thing you know, you're,
Yeah.
But where's the funny? Here's the problem. The funny is in whatever you choose it to be, because life does have a lot of pain attached to it. Life does have a lot of sadness attached to it.
Yep.
But it also has a hell of a lot of laughter. And sometimes those two lines are very blurred.
Yeah.
They really are.
And that's okay.
Someone's pain is someone else's laughter. I don't know how many times I've been in a movie theater with Dana where something happens on the screen and I'll just pop off laughing, and I guess I'm the only one that found it funny, and Dana just makes a noise to me like, Louie, it's not funny. I'm like, well, I thought it was. That person just got smacked out. I thought it was funny. Or that person just got shot. I thought it was funny. Because that's the attitude I bring to being entertained. I'm able to go wherever I want to go because I know it's entertainment. It's not real.
Yeah.
So I think that we all have to do a little checking on ourselves and ask ourselves, where's my current funny? What's funny for me right now?
Yeah, and so full disclosure for those of you who do follow, the statement that I made was essentially there's a kid across the street. He's probably, I don't know, freshman in high school, decent sized kid, and he has a basketball hoop in his driveway, and he's been playing.
I'm laughing. You haven't even told the story. I'm already laughing about it because every time you tell it to me, I'm laughing because I missed the post.
I think it's funny.
Go ahead.
So, but anyways, so. Yeah, he has a basketball court or thing in his driveway, and he's been playing it for a while, and his little brother's out there with him as well. And the other day, I just looked over, and I just, because you can hear it in the house, doom, 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 like he's playing. So I looked out to see what it was, and I was like, let me see if this kid's any good. Let me just look. He's out here all the time. Let me look. And I watched him go 1 for 30. And for those of you who don't understand that terminology, I guess, it means he shot 30 times, and he missed all of them but one. It's not a good percentage, right? And he even missed, I don't mean like 3-pointer. No. He was like right under basket for many of them as a layup where he literally just put it up. And he missed that as well. And so I made a joke saying, hey, how do I go tell this kid, like in a nice way, hey, maybe basketball's not for you. Because he went for one. And you would have thought that I kicked puppies or something, dude. Like so many people seem to have a problem with that. And they were telling me to go and like be his father and teach him. And how dare I? One person said I was inconsistent. Right. And I'm like, hold up, everybody. Like for those of you who don't know me, I'm not going to actually walk out of my house and go tell this poor little kid to stop, playing. I'm not going to do that. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever spoken to him, nor will I ever speak to him. Like just a kid across the street. I just thought it was kind of funny that this kid's out here every day doing his thing and he's 1 for 30. That's not going to cut it, But to me, it was just a funny little joke. But a lot of people took it seriously, and that's kind of what started some of this ball rolling. What we're talking about today, and that is. Like, what is funny? And I think that we each have the right to decide that for ourselves and what we find funny. Right. And I don't think that doesn't comment on your character. I want to be very, very clear on that. Because, like you said, what's entertainment and what we laugh at, if we could see the irony in something or if we could see the flaw in something, doesn't mean that we're bad human beings. Doesn't mean that we would actually go do some of these things or we approve of it. Because we understand the difference between entertainment, fantasy, thought, and actual real life, right? Like, do I think that somebody should go up to that kid and crush his dreams and tell him, you suck? Of course not. That would be stupid to do. But am I going to laugh to myself to say, hey, the kid kind of sucks? Yeah. Of course, it's funny, because he kind of does. Like, right, if I said, if he was 30 for 30 and I said he sucked, it wouldn't be that funny anymore, because there's no irony in that. It'd be like, oh, you're stupid. But the fact...
it'd be me... Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, just saying, but the fact that he was 1 for 30, everybody knows. If remove the little kid part of it, just anybody went. Think of anything you do in your life. If you did it 30 times and you failed 29 out of all of them, that's not a good ratio. It's the truth is you're not very good at whatever you just tried to do, and that's the funny part is you're doing it and you failed almost every single time, but for some reason they all got wild about it. Go ahead.
Well, no, to me, what's funny is the fact that people got upset with you.
It is kind of funny.
That's what I laugh about. I laugh that somebody is scrolling their social media,
Yeah.
sees that comment, and goes, "Poor kid."
No, they all.
As
Dude,
if
my
you
wife.
just kicked the kid.
No, my wife came home and I said that. She's like, "Aw." I was like, "Aw." He was 1 for 30. There's no awe in that.
See, that's what I keep laughing at.
Yeah, there's no awe in that. I didn't kick a puppy, guys. But the point is, though, is I see that a lot, right? We all have that. Every person watching this, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're a child, if you're whatever gender you identify with these days, if you're black, if you're white, if you're purple, I don't care. Everybody watching this has a few things that they know they laugh at that they wouldn't laugh at in public. Everybody.
Right.
I don't care who you are. You probably even have that friend that says some stuff that you don't want to bring to that party, but you laugh privately when they say certain things. And that to me is the problem, is we're not allowed to laugh at things anymore. Somehow laughing at something, you are now deemed to be a horrible human being. And like all the judgment that is you are now putting your views, your ideals, your, uppityness onto somebody else.
Yeah.
And they might not feel that way. Like they might take, as you said, I find it entertaining. It's supposed to be entertaining. I mean, not only that, and look at the hypocrisy, right? We're not supposed to laugh at that, but you'll watch TV shows with people being beaten, raped, murdered, destroyed, terrorists blowing up buildings, and all this people taking the law into their own hands and murdering entire villages because somebody took their dog, right? Like John Wick. All that happened is somebody took his dog and he destroyed thousands of people because of a dog, right? That's cool, but it's not cool to laugh. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by the hypocrisy, right? Is we got to stop sitting on our ivory towers and judging everybody through our lens of what we deem is funny or not funny. Now, I'm not saying you have to find everything funny, right? Like, I can see the generation gap. There's plenty of things that I laugh at that I think are funny. And then my mom, who's much older than I am and from a different generation, she just doesn't see the humor. She's like, that's gross or that's mean or that's whatever.
And that's fine.
And that's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
There's a lot of stuff that Hollywood puts out that apparently is funny for the younger generation that I look at myself and me and Dana look at each other and go like, wow, we're old when. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's things I see that I don't see the humor.
Huh?
There's things that I watch all the time that my kids see that I don't see the humor.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm going to give you some examples. By the way, Marissa, keep doing your comments because I'm laughing at them as I'm reading them, actually. Thank you very much, Marissa, for making comments. She's on Facebook Live.
Yeah,
she's making comments as we're speaking, and I think a lot of them are very humorous. But I'm going to give you an example. As a parent, and maybe you can relate to this, maybe you can't, because I know that we both probably opened up certain words or conversations to our kids differently. You and I have raised kids differently in what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. Sure. I know that my brother is more like on your side in regards to how they communicated with their kids as opposed to how Dana and I communicated with our kids. I'm going to give you an example. So watching a movie or show, when I see a little kid in a movie, use certain curse words or talk about certain themes, I cringe. I'm like,
I do too.
That's not funny to me.
No, it's not funny to me either.
I want to be there with the director. I want to be there in the movie. I want to enjoy it. But there's a part of me, and I think it's the counselor in me, to be honest with you. I think it's the person in me that has sat in rooms where people have suffered trauma. And so that person inside me, unfortunately, knowing how Hollywood can really hurt younger people. The actors behind the scenes, how they've been abused by certain men in Hollywood, how they've been abused by people in that scene. I can't help that, so I see that. Sure. When I watch a movie and these young teenage girls they're talking sexual themes and they're supposed to be teenage girls.
Yes, that bothers me.
The director or the producer is trying to get me to be like, this is funny or this is something I want to watch.
Or this is normal.
That irks me. Yeah. So there's certain things that other people apparently like. I think Hollywood people apparently think it's funny. I think a lot of people that are far less conservative in their parenting might think it's funny. But I'm a pretty conservative guy when it comes to that stuff.
Same here.
You know what I mean? When it comes to content. We kept a lot of content from for instance, I didn't curse. You know how much I love to curse, Trinity. I didn't curse in front of my kids until they were 18. Once they were both 18, all gloves are off.
Sadly, now, I lost that battle.
It's really cool because we could have these conversations with my kids, and they actually say, "Wow, yeah, you're right. We never heard you talk like that." And now it's like, well, now you're an adult, so now I don't give a shit. So it's a whole different ball game. But up until 18, I didn't want to be the one to do it. I just didn't. You
Right.
know, not that I'm not against it for other people. I just didn't want it from me. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Not from me. But again, I wasn't judging others. It was just not something that I didn't think they could understand that humor
Sure.
from me yet.
Well,
Now they just look at me like, "Whew."
sure. Well, and the other thing is humor is a complex thing, right? Humor
Very.
is not just a simple thing. Humor is very complex because humor is based upon our perspectives and the things that we've gone through and how we use our logic to come to certain conclusions. And it's different for everybody. So it stands to reason that some people can find things funny while others won't. But that doesn't mean it is or isn't funny. If you laughed at it, then it's funny. Or somebody laughed at it, then it is funny to them, right?
Yes.
An example between humor and stuff, right? I remember The Walking Dead, right? It wasn't necessarily funny per se, but it kind of was. The Walking Dead, and there was another show I can't remember, Kick-Ass, I think it's called. Kick-Ass and Walking Dead both had a scene in them that I absolutely love, and most people probably hated or cringed at, right? And I'll start with The Walking Dead. We'll just leave it at that one, right? So The Walking Dead, I don't know if you remember the very first episode of The Walking Dead. I'm not like that guy that's super into zombies. Like, I don't mind them, whatever. My wife is like a zombie individual. She just loves zombie stuff.
Yeah, Dana walks around with a gas mask on.
Yeah, so when it came on, I was going to watch it. Sure, I'll check it out. But they won me over in the opening scene. For those of you who don't remember, the opening scene was Rick Grimes, the character, at like some gas station or whatever, and a little girl came up to him, like a tiny little girl in a little pink dress. And it was like a zombie girl. And I was sort of looking at him. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, you better shoot her.
Shoot her in the head.
Shoot her. And most of the people are thinking, it's a little girl, whatever. He shot her. He shot this little girl. And I was like, yes, I like this show.
Yep.
Because, and it's not because I agree with shooting little girls in the head. I don't agree with that. That's horrible. You should never do that. But A, this is entertainment. And B, what I respected about them is they had the balls to do something that they knew would ruffle so many feathers. They had the balls to be like blatantly offensive. They knew that they were going to get backlash. They knew that it was going to upset some people. Even though realistically speaking, it's a show. B, it's supposed to be a zombie. Like, it's supposed to die. It's not even human anymore. But they knew that it was going to ruffle feathers. And so for me, I thought it was freaking hilarious. And I love the fact that the opening scene was, I'm going to shoot this little girl. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. But that doesn't say to me, that doesn't say to other people that I'm this horrible human being that thinks that she's... No! It's so the way my logic looked at it, the reason why it was funny to me is because I appreciated the balls that it took to do that. I respected the fact that they took their art to a place that they thought it should go regardless of backlash. And so that's why I found it funny. And so that's what I mean by humor is different to humor for different people. Some people love slapstick comedy. I was never a huge fan of like the Three Stooges. I watched it when I was a little kid. I could sit through many of them, but I was never that dude that was like, oh, the slapping and the punch. It seems silly to me, but a lot of people loved them. So like that's the difference in comedy. Go ahead. I know you got something. You didn't do this like you didn't put your thing.
I didn't do this, but I was also oh my God, now he's going into slapstick, and then I'm going to forget what I was thinking about that, because I was going to say not only did you get it, because that's what they wanted you. They wanted you to laugh at that girl getting shot in the head. Yeah. And the reason they wanted you to laugh at it, and this is how my proof that they wanted you to laugh at it, is because remember that show that they always did after The Walking Dead?
Yeah, The Talking Dead.
Yeah. So in that show, they humorize. I mean, they make humor off every killing of a zombie.
Oh, see, I've never really watched that show.
They do like this memorial, and they name them even. This is that one would have been something like. Crazy girl, just whatever. I'm not even thinking that creative right now. But the point is they name all these people and they show them getting their heads sliced off, show them getting shot, and they do this little memorial of them dying, showing you, hey, this is funny. So you're not supposed to take that serious. You're supposed to laugh at it.
Yeah, but as well as I do, many people hated that because they were shocked and appalled at just the notion of that. And you're allowed to do that.
Others would say gross.
Yeah,
and that's okay. If you saw it as gross and grotesque, and it's too gory, it's too much blood. That's part of it, right? Some people think,
and that's okay. And that wasn't. You're not the demographic that they were trying to go after. But it doesn't mean you should shut it down and make it to where nobody else can see it, and then look down and judge everybody who finds that funny.
Right.
That's kind of
like
what. Well, that's what we're talking about today. Is this judgment of what is or isn't funny, and what that says about you that you laughed at it.
Yeah, like I'm not a poop. Like poop doesn't make me laugh. You know what I mean? I'm not a pooper. But like, here's the difference between we would always call ourselves, with like my brother's Delgados are the Sarasota Delgados, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Siesta Key Delgados. So they, from little kids, their kids, they would laugh about poop jokes, fart jokes, all that stuff. And my kids always just sit there like this.
Right.
And so would I. For some reason, Dana and I and our kids, that's just not funny to us. But I'm not judging it. It's just not funny to us.
Right.
So whenever you play those games, you know how there's all these new kind of games where you have to write down something and think who said it or who would say it like that.
Right.
There's all kinds of games.
Yeah.
And so anytime there was something with poop or fart, we knew it was one of them. You would know my kids didn't write that,
Sure.
nor Dana didn't write that, I didn't write it. So it's going to be one of them. Because that's their humor, that's their joke. Especially when they were younger, they'd always do that. But that's just an example of something that a lot of the world finds funny, and I just don't. But you're not supposed to judge someone else's opinion on what's funny to them. I think what's more important as a person is to respect other people's funny. What's funny to you is not funny to somebody else. What's funny to me is not always going to be funny to you. But we all at least deserve to laugh at something. We all deserve to not be so serious about everything.
Yes.
Because the opposite is also true, Trinity. What's painful to you might not be painful to me.
Yeah.
What's traumatic to you might not be traumatic to me. Your chaos might be my normal. And so we see that in so many other factions of our life. Humor is not going to get a pass on this. I always joke with Dana, and she probably can hear me doing this because ever since we've been doing a show like this, guess what? I'm at home doing the show, which means she can hear me when I make comments. So
Sure.
if you see something fly up in my head or her walk in, it's because she's not going to like what I'm going to say. But I always joke with her that she doesn't have a sense of humor. Why? Because I'll make jokes and I'll say, I was joking. And she goes, no, you weren't. You were serious about that. Like, she thinks she's just a subject of my humor. Where I say, well, who's a better subject than you? I mean, you make me laugh more than anybody, baby. You know what I mean?
No, I got in trouble. See, that's an example. I got in trouble last night for that. Well, not like real trouble, obviously, like married trouble, basically. There was a show that was on TV, and it was about a therapeutic type situation. I won't go into all the details. I'm not going to give them promotion, but I was watching the show, and in the show there was a lady who her husband passed away. She's 50 years old. She's a mother of two kids. Her husband passed away, and she said in this little dialogue thing that. Not only was he my husband, but he was my best friend, and he was a great father, or he was a great stepfather to my daughter, and he passed away, and now she's going to go get on the stripper pole. And so I said to my wife, it's like, oh, look, that's our life. All I got to do is die. She didn't find that funny. I thought that was funny because I'm her husband, I'm her friend, and I'm a stepfather to her daughter, or whatever. I thought it was funny. It was the irony of it, She didn't find that very funny. She didn't like the fact of me talking about me potentially dying, which I thought was funny, but she did not. But as an example,
you picked an easy one compared to the ones that get me in trouble, and I know you probably got something to get you in trouble.
Oh yeah, I've got something to get me in trouble for sure.
Yeah,
but that's okay. It keeps things fresh. But that's the point, though, right? Like I want to focus at least a couple minutes on this idea, and that is. And this is my opinion, and I think there's some studies out there that I could use as justification to back up this opinion, but humor is so important in life. It really, truly is. Like, I don't think we can undercut how important humor really, really is. When I say the studies, there's studies out there that says it releases endorphins. Humor is healing. It really, truly is.
Very much so.
And we overlook that so many times. We get so stuffy and so serious and so angry that you forget how. Just think back to your either your childhood or your younger years. When was the last time you had a belly laugh? I'm talking about just a deep belly laugh where you're like tears and just how good
where
that felt.
Jaw hurts.
Yes, and how good that felt afterwards. Like it just felt like. Oh my God, that was awesome. Like, it just feels great. I got goosebumps even thinking about it right now. Yeah. That's how good a good, strong belly laugh feels. And in that moment, you're not thinking about all the crap that you have to deal with today. All the shit that is piling up in your life right now that you're trying to deal with or avoid or whatever. In that moment, none of that matters. In that moment, you're just happy. And that's what humor brings to the table. And that's why it's so important. And that's why it's so important to give everybody their humor. Whatever, as long as it's not hurting somebody, as long as it's not like breaking, you know what we're talking about. Like, is it what Would I laugh at somebody coming up and just like slapping somebody? Whatever. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but as long as it's entertainment. If I'm sitting at a store somewhere and somebody walks up and slaps like a little kid, that's not funny to me. That's like, dude, what are you doing, right? That's where we have to like step in and intervene. But if it's
Right.
if it's meant to
Now,
be, yeah,
now, but if it was my friend who would have done it back when I was a kid, I would have been
yeah,
like,
of course,
"Yeah."
yeah, it was a
So a
kid.
lot of it is perspective and where you're at in life as well.
Exactly, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because all right, I'm going to give you an example. Because it's not just humor; it's entertainment as well, right?
Yeah,
Entertainment's the same principle.
yeah,
Music is the same thing. How
yeah.
how many different genres of music do you listen to and you go like, that's not music? Well, for someone else it is.
Yes.
You
Get
know?
off my lawn.
So it's not just laughter. We have to respect this in a broader sense. Laughter is just one example on how we use our judgment and then kind of lock the doors around it, build this giant wall around it, and say anything outside of this, I don't deem funny, or I don't deem it to be entertaining, or I don't deem it to be enjoyable, or I don't deem it to be useful. Well, that's not true. That's
Yeah.
your opinion.
Yes.
And we all have these opinions, and it's okay to have these opinions. Here's the deal. As long as I'm not laughing in your face and hurting your feelings with the intent to hurt your feelings, you should be okay with this. And I'm going to give you an example of one, Trinity, that happened to us, man. Remember Q?
Yes. Oh God, yes. I remember Q. Yes.
I mean, was there anything
And I love the fact that we still call him Q. By the way, just going to put
for
that
a
out
brief
there.
moment?
Yeah.
The Q had to open up his mouth, and he was seriously offended.
Yes.
That made us laugh more.
Yes.
Because the timing of that
Yes.
and that face that he had, and he tried to be serious about it. Well, he was serious about
Yes,
it.
it was very serious.
That was a moment where, maybe you and I were a little bit on the bully side a little bit.
Yes.
But it was our content, though.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what I mean? It was.
Yes, he
Wait
was
a minute.
completely wrong in that situation.
Yeah. I think both sides had their wrong,
Sure.
but I'll take my side any day on that one. But here's
Yeah.
an example of a situation where it went on for a long time. And then it wasn't until it was all over, this producer that recorded our entire show we did a show for a specific thing.
Yeah.
At the end, he didn't want to release the content. And we're like, what? That's our content. Give us our content. And what did he go on to say, Trinity?
He did not like the fact that we nicknamed him Q.
And by the way, why did we nickname him Q, and who is that in reference to?
So we nicknamed him Q because you and I are at least of the generation where we're exposed to James Bond 007. And in that show, one of the unsung heroes was Q, who designed all these amazing contraptions and all this technological, array of weapons and things of that nature that nobody else could think of. Q was so brilliant that he was able to create them for 007 to go out there and do his thing. And so this dude was able to create these magnificent work of art stuff in his thing where it was a perfection. It was like such a great setup for sound. So you're like, dude, you're like Q, man. You're like this brilliant scientist. And he took offense to that. He said, hey, that offends me. We didn't think he was serious because we didn't understand how you could be offended by being called a genius.
A genius.
Yeah, and so we mentioned it a couple times through the show, and at the end of the show, he was like, I'm not going to give you my content because I told you I didn't like that. And we laughed because we were like, are you
Until we
serious?
delete it. No, he goes, until you delete the scenes. He goes, I will delete it.
Yeah, he will
I'll
dub out.
edit it and then give it back to you.
Yeah.
And then that's when it was like, listen, Q.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
So then it got a little ugly a little bit for a quick sec. And Trinity, so that Trinity wouldn't get ugly, Trinity actually left the situation so that he wouldn't.
Yeah, I walked out of the room.
Yes. but anyway, that's an example of. To me, that's an example where, okay, you could be a little bit more aware that your humor may be offensive to other people. But Trinity, that was us not really truly understanding that this guy's from a completely different generation where nicknames don't exist for some reason.
Right.
Like, we come from a generation where guys, and we try to explain this to them. Look, dude, guys give each other nicknames. That's kind of a dude thing. But then again, even that is not in this generation.
Yeah.
You can't say this is a guy thing, this is a dude thing, this is a locker room thing. All those things are now offensive, or they're too, something else. So. But I think what this generation or his generation needs to at least understand, and if you're watching this or listening to this, please understand this. You got to allow the older generations to also be who they are. You
Yeah.
can't ask everyone to accept you for your type of being and not accept the other people's type of being as well. So what we find funny is going to be different than you. That's why, like Mel Brooks, that may not be
Yeah.
funny to you
Mel
anymore.
Brooks is
But
funny.
but Mel Brooks is funny as shit to us that
Yeah.
grew up watching Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
You know, but it may not be funny to you. Benny Hill may not be funny to you, but he was funny to us. There's certain people, like you said, the Three Stooges wasn't funny to you. It was funny to me. I love the Three Stooges. I loved Abbott and Costello,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But like my kids watch it, like
Who's on
if I have
first?
it on, they're bored,
Yeah.
bored.
Yeah. And that's
That's what it
okay.
is,
And
man.
like you said, that's
It's
the point.
okay.
And the sad part, though, and we'll use the same Q situation, right? In that same situation, not only, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, in the sense of the judgment there cost him. It didn't cost us. We're doing our thing. It cost him because had he have, I'm not saying he had to get on board with what we were doing, but
Right.
what I'm saying is if he would have approached that with the understanding that, hey, these are guys of different generation, and just
Right.
understood a little bit and said, hey, look, man, for future reference, can we not do that? Because we would have abided by that for sure.
Yeah.
Had he seriously said, look, guys, I was serious, I really
Maybe.
appreciate it, whatever. But my point is, because he didn't, because he held firm in his judgment that we were somehow bad or wrong or whatever, that relationship is burned. We've
Right.
never spoken to him again, and who knows what that could have blossomed into with his skill set. But it burned,
Right.
all because of judgment. And that's what I mean
Right.
by us. Like, how many of you right now, how many friendships have you missed out on? How many relationships have you ruined or whatever because of your judgment? Because you thinking that that person shouldn't find this funny, or they shouldn't have laughed at that, or they should laugh at this, or whatever it may be. Like,
Right.
stop, man. Let people have their funny. Let them have it.
Well, and the other thing is also like you someone else's intent is kind of important. Okay, so here I encourage anyone that feels like someone is being mean to them or offending them, is that their intent? Maybe that's what you should ask. Like, what was your intent? I mean, just ask the question
Yeah.
because we try to have a serious conversation with that individual afterwards, and try to explain. Here's the intent. Um, but once somebody try to play Billy Badass, well now I'm just going to push all your buttons because now if you're going to try to play tough,
Yeah.
then I'm going to show you that you're not as tough as you think you are. So here's where now egos get involved. Now we all start doing a measuring contest. Now and that's when it can go bad. And that's why I said Trinity,
Yep.
maybe we could have done it a little bit different because then it
Sure.
would have got to that point. But it almost got to the point where the poor little Q got hurt. And so we don't want it to get to that, right?
Right.
So I think we can all understand that. Look, not everyone's going to find the same thing you think is funny. I know, like I said, I know Dana doesn't hardly ever think what I think is funny is funny. But there's so many things that I just do naturally that she enjoys. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It works. You don't have to find everything funny to be a partner with somebody. You don't have to find everything funny together to be friends with somebody. You don't have to find everything funny to even be associated with somebody. Like, those things don't have to all be in common. It's okay to be around people that just think a little bit differently than you. And it's just giving a little bit more respect to the other person. And here's the thing about what you did, and I think what's happening so much out there. If we lose humor, if we lose the ability to speak openly about what makes us laugh, it's not going to change the fact that we're thinking it.
Yeah.
It's not going to change the fact that I think that what you just did there was funny, or there's something about your face that I find funny, or there's something about my face that you find funny. Those things are funny. I'm sorry. You may not like them. You may not want that to be true, but to somebody it is. And I'd rather speak openly and honestly with somebody that I'm friends with or have a relationship with than to hold it all in. If I have to hold that much stuff in, I'd rather not even be around you.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way we should go about it. Instead of trying to silence everybody or say that you don't have a place in society or you don't have a place in my broader circle, no, just say that I don't have a place in your inner circle, and I'm cool with that, and that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think deeming something funny to you or not funny to you is totally acceptable. Judging the individual, I think, is unacceptable. Right? If I think this is funny or not funny, getting away from funny for just a second, because you said something earlier about art. Like, I think personally, Picasso is the worst artist I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, God, what an amateur!
I think the Picasso stuff where the eyeball's up here and the nose, that to me, that abstract kind of, it makes no sense to me. I wouldn't give you $1 for it. Now, I would now because it's worth millions of dollars to somebody else.
I'll give you $1 for it.
Yeah. But my point is, I wouldn't pay for that. I see that. I don't get it. I was like, I don't understand that. I don't understand why people are paying millions of dollars for his art. It makes no sense to me. I look at it and I don't know what it is. But I'm not going to judge the person who buys it, who sees the value in it. Because to them, through their perspective, that's an artistic thing and they like it. It makes sense to them. Cool. Like, I'm not going to judge them and say, oh, well, you're just this. That's where we run into problems. Right? Because I don't think Three Stooges was necessarily the funniest thing in the world. There's a few times I would watch them, they were all right. But after about the second or third episode, I kind of understand what they're doing. And so, to me, it wasn't that funny. But if I saw... but I see people doing it, or laughing at it, to me, I don't look at them and say, well, stupid, how do you... No, what I look at is like, good for you, man. I'm glad you found something you find funny. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, we all need to laugh. And that makes you laugh. Watch more of it. That's awesome. I personally don't find it as funny, so I won't sit down and watch it very much. That, I think, is what we need to get closer to. The judgment of what's funny for you and not funny for you is totally okay. The judgment of what should or shouldn't be funny for somebody else or who they are for finding it funny, that is not okay. That's where you're treading the waters. And I want to comment on Ellie Lawton. She said she's one of our watchers, for our listeners, watchers, whatever she's doing at the moment, from the UK. And she says, I'm from Yorkshire and have a northern humor, very dry, and I now live in southern England, and they just don't get me. And I understand that, right? There's a couple, there's a few comedians, right, that I used to watch that were just, I thought they were some of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But they were very dry, very just kind of like monotone, very slow. To me, I got that humor, that very subtle just jabs. I thought that was hilarious. But then other people just didn't get it. They were like, oh, they're not really that funny, whatever. Totally cool, man. It's okay. Let people have their funny. Stop judging around, man. Stop it.
Yeah, that's a good example. Regions also definitely do it because being from a predominantly Mexican area, El Paso, Texas, we rag on each other. That's what we do. I mean, if you're a friend, we just hurt each other, family members and everything. Nobody's free of it, man. We just dog pile and just blah, 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 blah. Brother, you'll be crying. I mean, that's the more you take offense to it, the more you get your feelings hurt, the more we like rabid bulls attack. I mean, that's just it's kind of the way the humor is in that region. So if you've ever known anyone from El Paso, Texas, answer me this: are they not like offensive and just pushing buttons like that? I think that's why when I moved here's how I know that it's a regional thing. So Dana's not like that at all. She hates sarcasm, not into sarcasm, doesn't get sarcasm.
Oh gosh.
Right? So when we would be around, when I first got here, people would always tell me, like we'd be at parties or whatever, and they would go, "Are you from New York?" And Dana would always laugh. And I'd be like, "Why do they think I'm from New York?" She goes, "I think it's because you're kind of rude. I think it's because you're humor."
That's funny.
So I think because I would like bust balls and like get in people,
sure,
everybody just automatically assume, oh, he must be from New York.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, my wife will say sometimes, she'll say like soda pop. To me, that's funny because growing up, we just called it soda or we called it Coke or whatever. Like she calls it soda pop. And to me, that's just funny. Just it sounds funny to me, right?
Just sounds dorky. I just
pop. And then Simon. Simon is one of my really good friends, listener on here. He's also from England. He said, try having an English humor in the U.S. And I get it. Like I get it because I've heard things like some of the Benny Hill you mentioned, right? There's another one. The other one I can't think of the name.
No, you know what I didn't like? Oh, I get an example. Monty Hall.
That's what I'm talking about. Monty Python. Monty Python. Yeah, I don't get it at all. I don't get it. I don't laugh at it. I don't understand why that's such a treasure for so many people.
Nope.
But good for them. Like good for the people who.
But everybody liked it. They would always imitate.
Yeah.
They would always say all these words, and they'd be like, "I was more of a Cheech and Chong guy than a Monty Python guy."
Up in smoke, baby.
But have your thing, man.
Yeah.
I knew that it must be funny. It's just not funny to me.
Yeah, and that is the we're touching on it so much. That's the important part, man. It's got to be funny for somebody if they're laughing at it, and that's okay, right? You don't Marissa says
she gets warned. Yeah, Marissa probably gets warned every time she goes to other parts of the world, probably because she's a New Yorker. So it's like, all right, now the rest of the world doesn't find what you find funny, Marissa.
Sure.
So they probably give Marissa a whole list of what she.
Well, I can already tell Marissa. She jokes an awful lot about her wheelchair and stuff, and I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and they feel like that it's not funny.
Right.
I think it's funny. Like, it's right in front of your face. It's obvious as hell. Why not laugh at it, right? Like, perfect example. Here's a quick story, right? One of my best friends that I've known for, gosh, man, over 20 years now, Terrence. Which is, I'm sad that you two have never met yet. By the way, that's ridiculous. But anyway, I've known this dude for over 20 years, man. Him and I have spent so much time together. He's a black dude. I'm a white dude. And if you don't think that I commented on that as often as I possibly could, you don't know me then. Because him and I, every time we would go out to eat, we'd be sitting down, and he would say, hey, do you have, I don't know, root beer? And then the girl would say, no, we're out of root beer. I would immediately, without missing a beat, like, oh, is it because he's black? Dude, that's not cool, man. What's up? And the girl would get so uncomfortable. No, it's not. And we both thought that was the funniest thing ever. Because people are so uptight about race, and him and I just didn't care. So we just threw it out there and just loved to see people get uncomfortable over stupid things. But that's an example of things that are uncomfortable. They might be uncomfortable to you, but they're funny. That's what makes it funny. It's because it's uncomfortable. Because there's no reason for it to be uncomfortable, but it is. And that's the funny part of it. And so I think that's what Marissa does a lot of times, where she'll throw out stuff about, oh, the good thing about being in wheelchairs, when I stub my toe, I don't feel it or whatever. Like, that's funny. Like, it is.
Well, yeah. Every time on this show, I've made comments on this show, like, I stubbed my toe or I hurt my face. She goes, oh, that's why I like my situation, because that never happens to me.
Yeah.
Or I can relate or something. Even if she just says, I can relate, I laugh because I know exactly what she's saying.
Yeah, and that's funny.
Her toe.
But I know people that would look at that and say, oh, that's horrible.
So we joke back.
Yeah.
So we joke back and say, I'll say, something like, well, stand up and applaud or something like that, just to kind of like push back or like run, don't walk, something like that.
Yeah.
Because she'll make fun of, something else.
And there's people that hear that, they get offended, and it's like, stop being offended by everything. Just let things be funny. And if you don't find it funny, fine. Walk away, let them find it funny. Don't judge them. Don't try to change them. Don't try to make them fit within your mold, because the world would be such a miserable place if we were all the same. If we all thought the same thing was funny, if we all liked the same things, if we all thought the same way, we're all just basic clones of one another, God, what a boring, horrible place that would be.
Yeah.
There would be no innovation. There would be no fun. There would be no adventure. We would all be doing the exact same thing. And that's the thing that makes it so great, is that all the differences in how we intermingle together. And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's sad. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not so great. Like, that's the point. We got to learn how to accept all that. She said, fine, walk away, now I'm offended. See? That's funny to me.
Right. And you see that Ellie likes Monty Python. See?
Yeah. And I don't get it.
It's brilliant.
I've tried so hard to watch it because I'm so jealous. See, that's the difference, right? I don't judge. I get jealous. When I see people laughing so hard about Monty Python, and they're sitting there telling me these litany of reasons of why it's so funny, I want so badly to have that same kind of appreciation for it. So I try to watch it, but about 10 minutes in, I'm like, I just don't get this. I don't understand.
You have no idea, man. I've smoked a lot of pot and tried to watch that stuff, and still was not laughing as much as I would be laughing at, like, a Chucky movie, like a scary movie. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's like, I just could not get it.
Yeah, same here. And that's okay. Like, good for them. They got their humor.
Although the part I do remember all the time is the one that they were like, I didn't get it. Like,
isn't that the Holy Grail? Isn't that the Holy Grail or something?
Maybe they were like acting like they were on a horse, and they were like just.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. But that's okay that they do. You know what I mean? It doesn't bother me. If you laugh at it, yeah, man, kudos to you, bro. At least you got a good chuckle out of it, man.
You know what else I didn't get? Spaceballs.
Oh, see, I thought Spaceballs was hilarious.
The big helmet, Rick Moranis doesn't make me laugh. Rick Moranis is just not funny to me.
I think Spaceballs was pretty funny. I thought that was kind of funny. But if I'm going for Mel Brooks, I think I would prefer Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles to me.
I love Blazing Saddles.
But as an example, we did a show on this the other not too long ago where I mentioned it. The thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was I sat down and my wife was getting ready doing something. I had a little bit of time to kill. I saw Blazing Saddles was on HBO. I was like, oh, let me go ahead and watch that while she's doing it. Yep. I started it, and the first 10 minutes of the whole thing was some lady getting up and telling me about trigger warnings, and I was just like, are you kidding me? Because the whole and that's how it got so distorted through judgment and through everything else, is because that was actually designed to put down the people who are racist. Right. It was making fun of the racist people and how ridiculous it was. And yet here, fast forward to 2020, and they're talking about trigger warnings, and it might be upsetting you. And I just feel sad. I feel sad for the people who can't get the humor in that. Like, I feel sad that they can't watch that and think it's as funny as we do. But they're allowed to not find it funny because I'm sure they look at other stuff and feel the same that I don't think it's funny to them, and that's okay. I don't think that they're a bad person. I don't think that they should be locked away somewhere or whatever it might be because they don't think it's funny or whatever. Like my kids watch. It's not well. My 9-year-old son will come to me all the time with something that he thinks is the funniest thing on the planet. He'll just be falling on the floor laughing. Some TikTok video, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Look at this! Look at this!" And I'm like, "Okay." And it'll be like, somebody will be like, "Ah!" And he just thinks that's like the most hilarious thing. I don't think it's funny at all, but he's allowed to at 9. Go for it, bro.
Yeah.
Freaking laugh it up, buddy. The one thing we do all universally laugh at in this house, and maybe your house, I guess it doesn't. We all still think farts are funny. We all do. If somebody's sitting in the living room and they fart, I'm sorry. That's my immaturity coming out, and I don't care. I think it's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because I don't hear that, see that, or get talked about in this house. I got all girls, man. It's just a whole.
Well, that's what makes it funny is when my 11-year-old daughter lets one rip, and it's like, Jesus, like what the heck? Exactly.
All right. So listen, I bet you couldn't tell me. Who do you think that I'm the most entertained with about humor, just about anything? I mean, I bet you can't guess who I think is the funniest person on this planet.
Don't you like that one dude? Gosh, what is his name? That Mexican comedian, the one you just went and saw live. I can't think of his name at the moment. He had his own show.
That Mexican comedian.
That's what he's. What
George
is his
Lopez?
name? Yes, George Lopez.
No.
That I don't know.
He's funny as long as he stays out of politics. He's funny, but who do you think my It's a female, by the way.
A female comedian? I don't even know. I only know a handful of those, anyways. So I don't know.
Ellen.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think she is the funniest person on the planet. She's the most entertaining person on the planet. I think just the way she says a sentence, to me, is funny. I mean, that is a person, I would put her up there like with Will Ferrell that has a straight face, and no matter how she says a sentence, it makes you laugh. But I think Ellen is funnier than Will Ferrell. I think Ellen is just amazingly talented.
See, Will Ferrell would be an example of somebody who I don't get. There's a few things I've seen that make me chuckle every now and then, but this level of celebrity status he's obtained, I don't think it's deserved for me personally, but good for everybody else. Like when he was on Saturday Night, a favorite comedian?
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle. To me, Dave Chappelle, hands down, is the funny. I've never seen anything from Dave Chappelle
funny dude
that I didn't laugh at the entire time. He's the only one. Nothing. Everything he said, I just think his stuff, every one of his specials that I've watched, I laughed the entire time. He reminds me of Eddie Murphy back in the day when he did Raw and Delirious. Now, there's been other comedians that I've liked that they've gotten worse as the years have gone down. But
yeah, I could see it. Dave Chappelle is definitely on my top 3 of current. Right. Top 5 of all time for sure. But I've seen stuff that he's done or said that wasn't as funny, but it was poignant. I think he's brilliant. I think Dave Chappelle is one of the most brilliant comedians out there.
I do too.
But yeah.
Because I've seen some of his interviews off stage, and when he's serious and he's actually talking about intellect, I had no clue he was that intellectual. He is a brilliant dude, man, on the stage and off the stage.
Some names. I don't
Billy
know who
Connolly.
Les Dawson is, but I know who Bill Connolly is. He's funny.
Yeah, there's definitely some people out there, man. So we only got a few minutes left, and I know we want to jump to our sports show the morning after. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. So what do you got for me? What's your wrap up?
Oh man, did you have to do the widescreen? All right, so my wrap up is pretty simple today. Here's the deal. We all have, hopefully, a sense of humor. And even those of you that don't appear to have a sense of humor, you do have a sense of humor, but there's something probably holding you back from accepting it or buying into it, or for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know if you were hurt as a child, beat as a kid, you suffered some sort of trauma that didn't let you laugh, and if you laughed, you couldn't get your dessert unless you ate all your vegetables or meat. I don't know your situation. Here's what I do know though, is you and I are going to find things differently. We're going to look at things a lot differently, and that includes humor. It's going to include fear. It's going to include things that make us nervous or anxious or frustrated. Crickets.
See, that to me was
how
funny.
It was.
That to me was funny.
I thought that was funny. So the point is that just enjoy yourself, laugh at yourself. You are a funny individual. There's things about you that you do privately or you do in public that are just friggin' hilarious. Somebody's watching you and looking at you right now and going like, that is funny as shit. And just accept it. That's just the way it is.
Right on. And yeah, like that to me was funny. The fact that you had crickets
Yeah.
and it came at like the most inopportune time. Like that to me is funny. Like that's,
Me too.
some people would be like, oh my gosh, again, in panic or whatever. To me, that's just funny. That's just par for the course, man. Anyways, before I do my 3 tips, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in and watching, listening, however you're obtaining this. By all means, if you're whatever platform you're using, whether it be YouTube at youtube.com/Dharma Time, whether you watch us live on Facebook, or whether you're listening to one of the many podcast platforms, by all means, please like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever that is on the platform. It does help us. We do appreciate it. And then make sure you follow us on social media. He's at The Dope Doctor. I'm at The Dharma Guy. And for those of you who are watching us live currently on Facebook Live at facebook.com/WPSN99. If you like sports, if you want to talk about the Super Bowl that just took place, by all means, make sure we're going to end this broadcast and start up the new show. Follow us on that one, and we can talk about some sports. There was something tells me there was a major sporting event that just took place a couple days ago, and I think we're going to have some opinions on it. However, let me get to my tips, because I did actually write some tips down today, and I want to try to get back into doing that. So for the three tips I got for everybody is, number one, life is way too short not to have some fun. Life is too short to not laugh and have some fun with it and see the humor in things. Release those endorphins and just gosh, man, get those belly laughs, man. Life is too short for that. Before you know it, you're gonna be old. You're gonna be on your deathbed and I've never heard anybody in my life that was on their deathbed, gosh, I laughed too much in my life. Never heard that. So try to find ways of laughing. Try to find ways of enjoying and having entertainment in your life. The second one is, some inappropriate things can be funny to some people, and that's okay. You can look at something and think that it's inappropriate or gross or disgusting or mean or whatever it might be, and that's okay that you view it that way. But just understand that other people might view that as funny. It's okay for them. And then the last and the final tip I have is, let people have their funny. So if you think it's gross, disgusting, mean, whatever it might be, they find the humor in it. As long as it's not actually hurting somebody or doing something malicious, let them have it. It's okay. It doesn't say anything about them as a person other than they find that funny. That's it. It doesn't mean that they're good. It doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean you shouldn't trust them. It doesn't mean that they're horrible or you need to not be friends. Stop. Just, they laughed at it. That's all it means. Don't give any more credence to it than it requires. That's all I got today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.